As long as you don't have oh, this one's great. Just use it. Yeah, really. That's had a long time, but part of what I was thinking, I'm obviously this law whatsoever. I know that you know that reach out and ask that. I'm not going to be in a position to really give it to you.
Always what? You're an expert on that.
This guy gives you trouble.
You talking about?
Yeah. Good afternoon, everybody. I didn't realize we were a little bit over on time, so we'll go ahead and get started. Okay. This presentation is about our consultant portal, which we rolled out a few years ago, just before COVID hit. So this is our first real opportunity to talk about the portal in person, since we've actually been working through it. Obviously, without it, we wouldn't have been able to really maintain our work over the past couple of years. So we're very lucky to have it. We understand there's obviously some things that we can do a little bit better, but we want to be able to present this opportunity for you all to be able to ask questions on it also. So we'll go ahead and get started. I'm going to start with a few PowerPoint slides, but then also actually go through a live demo of the system. Unfortunately, the service in here isn't great, so pages this morning weren't loading quickly. But we'll go ahead and get started and show you some of the fun things in the system. So kind of getting started, division overview. Looks like the notes are. I'll be fine. Okay. Division overview. Kind of the reason why we exist is we don't have the ability with KYTC resources to be able to complete all design work that we need to. We had about 10,000 cabinet employees a couple decades ago. We're down to 4,000 now. So for us to be able to get the projects out to the construction letting process in a timely manner, we have to rely on the consultant industry to do so. So we've kind of been forced into the portal due to COVID, but it was actually in plan even prior to that. Our goals, we work with both our cabinet project manager, typically if it's a design job, that person's located in a district office, and also work with our central office program manager, but also with the consultant industry. So you all are obviously a very important part of that piece of the puzzle. We want to make sure that you all have the resources to be able to deliver. We don't want to, Forman doesn't, because Forman's not in here anymore. Forman is my chief negotiator, so we want to make sure that we do things efficiently, but we don't want to cut you too bad and have you all go out of business or lose money on the job. We understand there's things and complexities that the industry deals with that we don't have to deal with on the cabinet side. So want to be cognizant of that. Make this a little bit interactive. I've got some questions. The first one, hopefully you all can read, but we have 6 core functions within the Division of Professional Services. Kind of from the beginning of the process until we get started until the end. Not to tip you all too much, but can anybody name some of the processes that we do in professional services? Pre-qualification, yes, Michael. Absolutely, that's 2 of them. Oh yeah, that's why everyone's talking. Yeah, so if y'all didn't hear, pre-quals, thank you. You only get 1 for both of them. I'm running low on those now. There's a lot more questions. So starting, Mr. Lindeman mentioned The pre-qual process, Mr. Basie mentioned advertisements, and I think that you mentioned invoices also. Yeah, so that's the back end. Of course, that's, David would never care about getting paid, but he just wants to make sure they're pre-qual. But there's 3 more, if you all have any ideas. Cheating? Kel said negotiations, so I guess that technically qualifies. It's actually production hour estimates, which end in negotiations, but yeah, I'll give you credit for that one. 2 more. UBS. You know more. Thank you, sir. And then the final one, which is probably the hardest one. So I'll go ahead and give you that answer. I don't see Sean here trying to get more drink tickets either. So it's the actual procurement process, writing the contract, getting the electronic signatures, and getting that contract out to get the notice to proceed. I'm just going to briefly hit on our people. We have a pretty small division in professional services, only 8 full-time employees. And I apologize, I know these. Sorry about that noise. It's hard to hear or hard to see, but I'm at the top as director, David Gormley, my assistant director. I think most of you will probably know. We have a vacant transportation engineer specialist, also a vacant transportation engineer tech supervisor, and then also a vacant budget specialist. So a lot of our people, a lot of our positions are vacant. But we also do have Reese Hamilton. I think most of you all know Clarissa's lovingly named Reese. Along with under her is Melanie Young, Shantae Wales, Ashley Jewell, and then on the I guess this is the tech side, it's Adrian Wells and Michael Shaw, who was up here getting this presentation started. And then we also have 9 Secretary's Pool and Governor's Pool members. So 6 of them on the Secretary's Pool side, 3 on the Governor's Pool side. Those were the people that were actually just up here a few minutes ago presenting on behalf of the committee. Within our division, I'll just briefly touch on this. Gormley does production hour estimates, negotiations, in addition to a lot of other things, helping me put together RFPs and putting maps together. Reese drafts all of our project-specific contracts, also processes all of those consultant final pay estimates, and oversees the QBS process, the actual running of the meetings. Melanie also helps with the pay estimates, also drafts all of our contract mods that actually have a fee. Shaw is my IT guy for everything. Adrian is the one that you all hear constantly. Sorry, David, you have an error on this fee proposal. You need to change your rates. She does an excellent job of catching those and making sure we have the appropriate information and the accurate dollar amounts before we write those. Also, she is now also writing our letter agreements for all of our statewide that we handle in professional services, which is about half of the cabinet. Ashley Jewell monitors our pre-qual process and also drafts all of our statewide master agreement contracts on the 2-year cycle. And then last but not least is Shantae. She handles all of our time extensions. So extending project schedules, but not with a fee. Okay, question number 2. How much money was authorized for contracts in 2020? This is for contract authorizations, not necessarily payments. So the potential answers are 55 million, 101 million, 178 million, or 226 million. Any guesses? Michael? D, 226 million is correct. Getting a little news, so I hope they take red. This was from yesterday, but if you have any trouble, let me know. Yeah, so Michael, I appreciate you answering. 226 million in authorizations. Of course, not that full amount is paid because a lot of our contracts are statewide contracts that have an upset limit that may not be reached. Also, of course, they lag on time. So we may authorize a contract, even if it's a lump sum contract, and it may be paid out over several years. So industry, of course, through the pandemic, somewhat struggled to keep up. with the workload they had, that was actually our fourth highest in our history. So even though it was a little bit lower than what the industry expected, still obviously a large amount of work going out the door. And both the authorizations of 226 million and the payments of 103 million were both the fourth highest in our history. So still a lot of work going on. Things have had a little bit of a shift, obviously, through COVID. So now the cabinet, we are eligible to work from home 2 days a week while being in the office 3 days a week. We also do a lot of virtual meetings. I've seen more people on boxes over the past 18 months than I ever cared to. But that's just the new environment that we're in. I think hopefully once we get beyond COVID, a lot of those virtual meetings will continue to happen. Selection meetings will probably continue to happen that way. It allows people like Charlie Dale and others that are across the state not have to spend a day in the car for an hour or a 30-minute meeting. But with the portal, which we're here to hear about today, we started development back in October of 2017. Obviously, it took thousands of hours to develop from myself, David Gormley, Michael Shaw, and then we actually had IT people in our COT, Commonwealth Office of Technology, that were assigned to it. I think there were typically 3 or 4 people working almost around the clock on it. So a lot of time, a lot of money, but we're proud of the product that we finally put forth. We did finally launch it September of 2019 and October of 2020. I'm sure a lot of you all probably get Apple updates for your phone. We continue to see bugs or enhancements that we wanted to put into the system. So October 2020 was the last final major push of any of those. So like I said, we're proud of the system that we have. We now have lots of users. Next question is based on how many individual users do we have in the consultant portal. So this is both internal and external users that are in the system. So how many total individuals do we have in the consultant portal? It will be either 355, 596, 858, or 1,206. Any guesses? And just to make y'all feel better, my IT guy, Michael Shaw, that put both this number, I think actually I came up with this one, the previous question based on contracts I got from a report that he gave me, and he didn't know the answer. So there's no bad guesses. C, that is an excellent guess. Good job. Yeah, we do have 858 users. Actually, I put this presentation together probably a month and a half ago, so I'm sure it's only increased since then. But we do have close to 900 users in the system now. When I was putting together this presentation, also just this quote kind of struck me. The most dangerous phrase in the English language is "we've always done it that way." I don't believe in being complacent. I think much of the industry probably feels the same, because if you all aren't evolving, then your peers are. So I agree that while things may be good or great, hopefully they can always be better. So we're in the process of always kind of challenging status quo and trying to make things easier on both us and on the industry. I'll quickly get through these features because I think I'll talk about these a little bit, and I'll show you the system also. So quickly, the portal is only for product-specific contracts, not statewide contracts. Statewide, unfortunately, like I said, are not part of the system yet. Hopefully, they will be in the future. But right now, product-specific contracts only. It is pretty much a contract management database. So we have a lot of information in across the board, from pre-quals, title contracts, kind of anything that you all want to see based on your firm. Within the system also, there's a pending task widget, which we think is very helpful for you all to see what's waiting on you. You also get automated email notifications based on tasks that are kind of in your court before they proceed on. And then pre-qual submittals and approvals, those are now part of the system. I think we turned that on about a year ago. We're currently in an odd year. So right now, all we require is a certification. Next year, starting January 1st, we will be in a full submittal process. But that full submittal process will be directly in the system. Not, you all won't have to submit those 5-inch 3-ring binders of information and pass that around. So hopefully the process becomes a little bit easier, both on you all to submit, but also for us to review. We also create contracts and advertisements directly in the RFP process. I know, Amanda, you're involved on a lot of those. That's nothing that the industry sees until it actually goes live, but that workflow actually is all handled through the portal. Electronic consultant response is also, you all submit those directly in the system now. That was something that we had planned pre-COVID. COVID just elevated that priority, but now you all just submit a PDF directly in the system. Estimate submittals and negotiations, you can always go back and look through. We have 1,945 contracts that are in the system. It's probably actually closer to 2,000 now. But you all can go back through your history. You all, I'm sure, probably keep files both digitally and hard copy. But also, Michael, who's not here, he was kind enough to go back through our decades of hard copies and scan a lot of information in. If there's something that's been done the past several years, we have those digital copies, so you can always see similar projects. You can see your project history all the way back from your initial contract through all the subsequent contract mods. So hopefully there's a comprehensive database there for you all to be able to pull from. And then finally, contract approval workflows, those all happen. And that's actually probably been the single largest enhancement to the process is Secretary Gray, Deputy Secretary Hancock, James Ballinger, John Moore, they all are required to sign off on each contract. And those are obviously very busy people. In the old days, before COVID, we would have a hard copy contract that we would draft, send to you all to sign, get back in the mail, route it physically upstairs, and then it would come back usually 2, maybe 3 weeks later. So the whole process, of course, from us mailing it to you all and then mailing it back and then including all that, would typically take about a month. That process now takes less than a day usually. So we're obviously increasing the notice to proceed by a month, which is great for our project managers. It's also great for consultants that are obviously trying to get started, be able to deliver on time and be able to get paid quicker. So hopefully it's a win-win for everybody. As I mentioned, Michael pulled those nearly 2,000 contracts going back to 1991. We've also now updated both project managers, both the consultant side and the cabinet side. So those automatic notifications are actually routed to the right person, so that correct person is aware of them when actions need to happen. Some things for us to worry about. We actually this morning weren't connected to VPN, so it took a little time to get started. But cabinet employees, if you're in central office, logging in during your business hours using your AD credentials, you'll be fine. But if you're not, if you're working remotely, we'll have to log in to VPN to be able to access the system. Consultants, if you all are trying to submit a contract modification, you can do that now directly in the system rather than working off the books. And there's just a button under modifications where you click a button that says, it's a plus sign, it says request modification. It's that simple. Also, we submit hours and the fee proposals prior to negotiations in the system. When you all do those fee proposals, please designate that those are fee proposals. We've built the functionality into the system that allows Adrian and myself, and I think Gormley, to see when a fee proposal is uploaded. We do not get notifications if a document is uploaded. So just make sure that you list those accordingly as fee proposals. Once Adrian sees that, then she can start her review where she tells you all what mistakes were made or what may need to change. But if it's a document, we're not aware. We've had several times where consultant, maybe a month or 2 later, will come back and say, hey, we had this fee proposal, what's going on with it? And we realized that they sent it in 2 months ago, but it was a document, so we never saw it. So obviously we're just losing the time that we try to make sure that we got the contract out quickly. Back again. Didn't learn the first time. On the notifications, again, things to kind of be aware of within the system. If you see an email from a no reply at ky.gov email address, try to pay attention to it. We try not to overload any user with getting just a bunch of emails that they don't need. But again, if it's a project manager, we try to let you all know if something is waiting on your approval or if there's a pending task for you. So typically, those contract approvals are typically done by a system administrator within the firm, not necessarily a project manager. But also production hour estimates, those are submitted by project managers. We let you know when we've approved units, when it's your turn to submit your hours, things like that. Also for contract closings, if a contract's getting ready to close within 30 days, unfortunately, the automatic notification that goes out for that one is at 4 a.m. Not sure who picked the time for that, but we let you all know that a contract is getting ready to expire. We did that in a way to say, well, this contract's either ready to expire, so we need to ask for an extension, or we can go ahead and start the process to close it out. So we figured that a month was enough time to do so. So please pay attention to that. Also, when your pre-quals are due, we send you a notification a month prior, letting you know that something needs to be submitted if you all want to continue to maintain your pre-quals. Also, again, now the electronic responses are submitted directly in the system. We understand that's obviously very important to the industry. So we almost provide you with a receipt of that, letting you know that, yeah, that has been successfully received by us. Selection results are also posted to any system admin that has submitted a response for a RFP within that bulletin. So at the end of selection day, we'll send a notification to a lot of people within the cabinet, secretary's office all the way down. But then we also send something to the industry, letting you all know, unfortunately, the selection's taken place, and if you all didn't get a phone call, you were not chosen, but here are the people that were chosen, the firms that were chosen. And then finally, the notice to proceed letters, which obviously allows you all to the ability to start work. Those are also automatically generated. Training videos we have on our website. It's actually on one of the pages on our website that our IT professional staff, they took 7 or 8 videos of our individual that built the system. He's actually narrating as he's working through a lot of the workflows. I think they're each about 3 to 5 minutes, and he's showing you what he's doing, but he's talking as he's doing it. So those are very helpful. Hits on really all the important things from dashboard, how to submit different items, and that's a great resource that just got turned on, I think about 2, maybe 3 months ago. Question number 4. I think our last gentleman to enter the room will hopefully be very proud of both this and I think the next slide. This started back in my inception in professional services. Mr. Dameron started a task force that wanted to place a sense of urgency on the process, and was glad to be a part of that. But we realized that there were just some bottlenecks, and a lot of it was just because we just didn't understand the priority behind a lot of these things. So this question, how many days does it take for a contract to get to procurement? Options are 25 days, 100 days, 200 days, or 300 days. This is, again, a new project-specific or statewide contract, but not a contract modification. Any guesses?
B.
B? I think you're showing off your boss. And this is unfortunately my last drink ticket, so perfect timing. Yeah, B is correct. 100 days.
Every day counts.
Every day does count. Yep, every dollar counts too. So this line in blue, which I apologize for those of you in the back, but about 20 years ago, it was above 250 days on average. We've obviously taken a lot of steps. This portal is one of them, but you can see when the portal kind of started, it was still over 150, about 160 or 170. Now we're down to probably, like I said, about 100, 110 days on average. And the blue line is for new contracts. The red line is for contract modifications. So, of course, within the new contract process, we need 43 days from the time that we actually post the advertisement till selections are made. So about 60 days, 2 months to get a contract from selection, to get everything scoped, hours in, negotiated, contract turned around is pretty impressive. South Carolina's DOT and Clemson, they've worked with Gormley and I past couple of years, because the national average for contracts getting turned around is still honestly about 200, 250 days. They were blown away that we can do things in half that time. So we try to share some things that we've done here with them. And I think they were impressed. I'm not sure how much they'll be able to do in South Carolina, but like I said, I think the national average is significantly higher than ours is. And unfortunately, like I said, I don't have any more drink tickets, but if y'all maybe come find me. Oh, there he is. I don't know if Gormley can try to have some more from Layson. But this is the last one, last question. How many days does it normally take to process an invoice? The options are 5 days, 30 days, 50 days, or 70 days. This is from the time that the consultant submits an invoice to the district office. District office turns around and sends it into sometimes the Division of Highway Design, sometimes directly through us if it's a partial payment, not a final payment, but then also the time that we process it, send it through to accounts, and then the electronic check is cut. So that's obviously a pretty lengthy process. What is the average time that it takes to process an invoice? B, 30 days. 1 month, that would be pretty impressive. But that's wrong. Michael. I'm sorry. 50. That would also be good. Also incorrect. Completely. Yes. And yes, that's why it's an average. It completely depends on the project manager on the consultant side, but more often on our side. We have Michael Vaughn, who's over at HSIP program. I think he sends Gormley probably 20 emails every Sunday a month. And I think Gormley's copied. His phone goes off constantly. His wife wonders what the heck's going on a Sunday night. But yeah, it does depend entirely on our person typically. But also there's a bottleneck that was in place on our side in professional services that is no longer there. So I thank you all for answering. The actual answer is 5 days. So again, the trend line, and I know that you all can't see this at all in the back. This is 50 days. That's where it was back in 2016. We had a little spike in program management that if you look at this line, it makes an M. I'm not sure if that's a coincidence or not, but back in the summer of 2018, there was a bottleneck in professional services that is no longer there. And now Reese and Melanie have done an excellent job on cutting that all down to 5 days on average. This is again external to the portal, but wanted to make sure that you all were understanding of how quickly they've turned that stuff around. I definitely appreciate it. I know you all appreciate it also. And then this is the last slide before I go over to the portal. So things that are not included in the portal, again, statewide procurements and letter agreements that Shaw is still hounding. We're hopeful that we get another release, or hopefully that gets included. Fee proposal submittal, we wanted to integrate our classification percentages with the TC 40-2 form, make things a little bit easier on you all to put those things together and submit them. Obviously, it was a heavy lift, so we didn't have enough time and resources to do that. Consultant evaluations, we would love that also to be a part. Division of Highway Design has their system. We want to enhance it and integrate that within our system. Statewide, it's like McKell's in planning, Andres for pavement rehab, Mike Vaughn's for HSIP. They have their own individual that are done on Excel, but we would love to be able to bring those in. And then, of course, the selection process, we can't put within the portal. I don't think we ever would, but we would love for invoicing to be a part of the portal. So if you all want to talk with Mr. Ballinger about any of these enhancements, cell phone number is 606. Oh, I shouldn't say the rest of it. And then Shaw has promised me that this would work. There. Y'all have any questions before I jump over to the portal? Yeah. Exactly. Yeah, some of those complications happen because I know your jobs and the bridges, those are funded at the project level. Sometimes those have to have multiple funding strips or a little bit more complicated. If there's an issue on one of them, it stops the entire process for every invoice for subsequent months also. So glad we eventually got that resolved. I'll quickly go through these, and unfortunately, the pages are pretty slow to load, so I won't be able to give you all anything behind these, but I'll show you the individual widgets. This is, again, in professional services, we're considered power users, so we have access to obviously everything in the system. Your views obviously look a little bit different from this, but just wanted to show you all what we've built. And so starting with the top left, our statewide service widget, this lists every statewide contract that we have. It lists our project manager, the upsell limit for master agreement, letter agreements, when the next advertisement's due. It has a template that Michael's built of the RFP itself that's scheduled to push that next advertisement. We have, if it's a statewide that has multiple consultants on it, it'll have the number of firms in that pool. So if any information that we need for those is held there. This next widget is the contract or create contract widget, where our project manager typically in the district can go in, add a contract if they know that one's going to be coming up in October, November. This is how they actually start that process. So they click this button, it integrates with SYP data, allows that smart information to come in. We identify the item number, and it pulls in all the other SYP data that allows them to attach that to a bulletin. Our user requests, these are people that have submitted and requested to access the system. That's typically something that if it's an internal cabinet person that's requested, we would approve it. If it's a consultant that submitted a request, that's when the industry is responsible for approving or denying their own people. The My Task widget, which this is, as you can see, Michael Shaw, he does a lot better job of keeping up with his work than I do. He has 0 tasks. I have over 100. So I'm a little bit behind. Consultant management. This is where you guys can see everything about your firm that's taken from that pre-qual application. It lets you know which pre-qual services you're currently approved for, when you got denied on certain ones. Any information about the pre-quals also shows you how many total employees, PEs, people in Kentucky. Basically, your entire list of people also are shown there. Bulletin widget, just met with John and James on Friday to approve the September bulletin. Those are all held here within the individual bulletins. We can expand those to see the individual RFPs and any of the services. We can see the workflow status of any of those. Next is the announcement response. This is where the industry submits their RFPs, their responses to those RFPs. You click on some certifications and can upload a PDF. Again, that you should receive a email receipt letting you know that's been done appropriately and been received by the cabinet. Contract search, you can put in either a 6-year plan item number or a PON 2 number and then search it here. That then would populate anything down below, anything associated with that. And then finally, we have a list of different admin functions that we have in professional services. Down below on the actual contracts themselves, in professional services, our default is for product specific versus statewide. but we have both options, and then our default again is for in procurement versus open and closed. But we can toggle those and search for any. In the actual grid, you can see that we have information including the agreement number, item number, description, route, county, pontoon number, if there is one. These again are not selected yet. EMAR's end date, which is blank, and consultant hasn't been selected, but list does list our project manager. And then there's similar fields for statewide, but ones that apply to statewide contracts. So I believe that's all that I have today. It looks like I've got 1 minute, but I'll be glad to answer any questions or listen to any feedback that you all have. Yeah, there's a little bit of wiggle room, and for the virtual audience, the question was based on statewide contracts, the 2-year cycle. There's a little bit of wiggle room. By statute, they are almost always 2-year cycle. We do have some like our Trimark contract. The capital expenditure to invest in something like that is so great that it doesn't make sense to do a 2-year. So we do have, I think that one actually is a 10-year contract that we had Northrop Grumman on. Peraton bought them, so now Peraton's on contract with us. Some of our other ones also, like our contract with Lead Imaging, our E-plan room, that one is very unique. So we did put some extension language if it's agreed to by both parties. We also, within that one, we had the ability to go back and negotiate prices also. So just actually the last time we negotiated it, we got a significantly better price because they started to understand there were more players that could be a part of this too. So there's a little bit of wiggle room. We try to get away from extending the upset limit. Every contract that goes through my office is subject to review by our General Assembly's contract review committee. They don't like when we come back and say, yeah, you gave us 2 million, but can we get 2 more million? That's very frowned upon. So we try to get ahead of that. If we understand that we're going to be hitting the upset limit quicker than 2-year cycle, we'll go back and re-advertise prior to. Just to give us a little bit more runway. We don't want to keep Katie or whoever our project manager is without the resources to deliver.
So something we've encountered is that most jobs that we assign people to are static. They're in one location. Sometimes they're spread out over long distances. They don't have travel mileage included in the contract. And then we're a front load, so the per diem hotels, any of that is included in the hourly pricing. We run into situations where hotel costs in parts of Kentucky, particularly southeastern Kentucky and along the southern border with Tennessee and Virginia, are extremely high. Can you all suggest a way to mitigate that?
Yeah, I know you're asking on, we have several different types of contracts. The majority of our contracts are lump sum. We also have some that are cost plus fixed fee, and we have some that are unit price, typically our right-of-way contracts. The one you're talking about is our specific rate of compensation. So within those, we don't consider cost a factor in most evaluations. It is in ones like that, because we actually do require that the firm submits a cost for the personnel that's identified. We expect that the industry and people that are firms that are responding have already done their work to understand what those costs are per person. After the contract's in place, we don't negotiate those. So we expect that you take into consideration, of course, the hourly expense, but then your overnight stays, your meals, your per diems, your travel, mileage, anything that comes into play. If it's something where you're constant, because we would assume that you are looking at things in a basis where you say, well, this is the typical scope of services across the state. If it's something where you're being asked to take on expenses that are kind of far greater for a longer period, if you're working with Katie or whoever you're working with, you can absolutely bring this to our attention. We can review it. I won't say that we would approve it. Yeah, I think we're a little over time. I think that's all that we have. So thank you all for your time.
Oh, good luck. Which one is it? I'll go heckle.
I'm expecting.
Wrap it up, baby.